warm evening, the air feels soft and slow. The sky holds a gentle light, like a thin gold blanket. You open a freezer, and cold breath touches your face. A small bowl waits on the table at home. One spoon. One quiet moment. Ice cream melts a little at the edges, and the sweetness feels like kindness after a long day. But how did people first learn to make something so cold? Why would anyone chase ice in hot weather? How could a dessert made of snow become a tradition in so many places? Why does this simple treat still bring hope and comfort, even now? Today we will learn English through a real story, in simple, clear language. We will follow the long journey of cold desserts, from early ideas to the modern scoop you know. Long ago, people did not have freezers. They did not have electric power at home. So cold desserts began in a very basic way, with snow, ice, and imagination. In some old places, winters were cold and snowy. People could collect clean snow from the mountains. They could mix it with honey, fruit juice, or sweet syrup. It was not ice cream yet. It was closer to a sweet snow dessert. Still, it was a surprising idea. Cold and sweet at the same time. Why would that feel special? Because cold was rare in summer. Because cold could calm the body. Because it felt like a small miracle, made by human hands. Some records suggest that in different parts of the world, people learned similar tricks. They cooled drinks with snow. They made iced fruit mixtures. They shaved ice into fine pieces. Each place had its own taste, and each place had its own way to keep ice for later. But here is a big problem. Snow melts, ice disappears. So how did cold desserts survive past winter? This is where the story turns into a story of survival and planning. In many regions, people built ice storage spaces. You can think of them as early ice houses, which means places made to keep ice cold for a long time. They used deep pits, thick stone walls, and sometimes straw or sawdust as insulation. Insulation is a simple word for something that slows heat from coming in. Because the ice was protected, it lasted longer, so people could bring ice into warmer seasons. That's why cold desserts could exist beyond winter days. Still, this was not for everyone. Ice was hard to get. It took work. It took time. It took strong hands and careful travel. So in many places, cold desserts became a special food for rich homes, royal courts, or big celebrations. Can you imagine that? A bowl of sweet snow as a sign of power. A cold drink served like a gift. A taste of winter in the middle of summer. Listen to this phrase. A taste of winter. Say it with me. A taste of winter. Good. Keep that phrase. It has a soft feeling like quiet light in the mouth. As trade grew, ingredients traveled too. Sweeteners, fruits, and spices moved from one place to another. When people had more sugar, they could make stronger syrups. When they had new flavors, they could create new kinds of cold desserts. So cold desserts slowly changed. They became smoother, they became richer. They became more like a treat, not just snow with sweetness. But they still faced a limit: texture. If you freeze sweet liquid, it often becomes hard like a rock. Or it becomes icy with rough crystals. So the next mystery is this. How did people learn to make cold desserts creamy, not just frozen? Many historians note that the answer is mixing and movement. When you stir a freezing mixture again and again, you break the ice crystals into smaller pieces. Smaller crystals feel smoother on the tongue. Also, if you add milk or cream, the fat can help the texture feel soft. These changes did not happen in one day. The story is complex, and different places learned different steps at different times. But the direction is clear. People kept experimenting, because people love comfort. People love sweetness. People love sharing something new at home. Why do we keep trying new recipes? Because we want joy. Because we want a little hope in ordinary life. Because we want to give kindness to friends and family, even in small ways. Now imagine a kitchen long ago. There is no freezer. There is a bowl inside another bowl. The outer bowl holds ice and salt. Salt. Yes, salt. Here is a simple science moment. Salt can help ice melt, and while it melts, it can pull heat away. That makes the mixture inside get colder. This is how some early makers could freeze a sweet mix more effectively. It was a clever trick, a bridge between nature and human method. Old cold snow traditions were not erased. They were adapted, given new meaning, and made more reliable. Repeat after me. Old ideas can become new traditions. One more time. Old ideas can become new traditions, nice and calm. Cold desserts kept moving forward like that. A little invention here. A little sharing there, a little improvement passed from one person to another. And slowly, the dream changed shape. It was not only snow and syrup anymore. It was not only for kings or the richest homes. People began to imagine cold desserts that could belong to many tables, under many kinds of light. But to reach that world, the story needed a turning point. It needed a way to make cold desserts easier to produce, easier to share, and easier to keep. So the next part of our journey follows that turning point, step by step, as cold desserts travel wider, and the simple scoop begins to look more like the ice cream we know today. The dream of a cold dessert spread because people kept solving practical problems. They wanted the same smooth sweetness, but they wanted it more often. They wanted it not only in palaces, but also in towns, markets, and ordinary homes. So the next question is, how did cold desserts move from rare luxury to common joy? Why did it become something you can buy on a normal day? How did it become part of daily life, not only a festival tradition? One answer is simple: better tools. As cities grew, people built more places to store ice. In colder seasons, workers cut ice from lakes or rivers. They moved it to storage spaces. Then, in warmer seasons, the ice could be sold. This was hard work, but it created a new kind of business. Because ice could be moved and sold, cold desserts could be made more often. That's why you begin to see cold treats in more public places. Not everywhere, not for everyone at first, but the door was opening. Another answer is also simple: social life. In many towns, people liked to meet and talk in public spaces. Some places had shops where you could drink coffee or tea. Some places had dessert rooms. People came for taste, but they also came for company. They came for light conversation, for warmth in the heart, and for a feeling of home outside the home. Cold desserts fit this world very well. They were exciting, they were different. They felt modern for their time. And they made people curious. Have you ever watched someone try a new flavor and smile? Have you ever shared a spoon with a friend? Have you noticed how a sweet treat can soften a hard day? That is human kindness at work. Food is not only food. Food is memory, food is connection, food is hope. But cold desserts still had a problem. They were slow and difficult to make by hand. The mixture had to be stirred again and again. It had to be cooled carefully. One mistake could make it icy or too hard. So inventors and makers looked for ways to help. Some accounts suggest that hand crank machines became important. A hand crank is a simple handle you turn with your hand. When you turn it, a paddle inside the container keeps stirring the mixture as it freezes. This made the texture smoother, and it made the work easier. Because of that, more people could produce cold desserts. And because production became easier, the treat became more available. So the tradition grew. Listen to this phrase. More available. Say it with me. More available. Good, it's a useful phrase for daily English. Now we reach a major turning point, one that changed almost everything. Cold without winter. For a long time, ice cream depended on natural ice. If winter was weak, ice was limited. If transport was slow, ice melted. If storage failed, the supply disappeared. This made the treat uncertain. Then, over time, new cooling technology appeared. We can call it refrigeration, which means making things cold with machines instead of ice from nature. The details are long and technical, and we don't need them here. What matters is the result. Because refrigeration became possible, cold desserts could be made in more places, in more seasons, with more control. That's why the treat could expand quickly. Can you feel how big that is? It is like turning a candle into a lamp. The light becomes steady. The work becomes predictable. The future becomes wider. With machines, makers could also produce larger amounts. That leads to another change. Factories and mass production. Mass production means making many items in the same way, again and again, usually with machines. This change brought both good and complicated results. On one hand, more people could afford ice cream. It could reach more families. It could enter more homes. A child could taste it without waiting for a special event. That is a kind of everyday hope. On the other hand, some small makers struggled. When big production grows, small shops must find a new way to survive. Many did survive by focusing on local flavor, careful craft, and community warmth. And here we find a bridge moment, quiet but powerful. Old customs were not erased. They adapted. In many places, people already had local cold desserts. Shaved ice, fruit ices, milk-based sweets, and frozen drinks. As ice cream spread, these older treats did not disappear. Instead, they often borrowed ideas from each other. New flavors entered old forms. Old forms inspired new products. Because of that, cold desserts became a family of foods, not one single thing. That's why today you can find many textures. Creamy, icy, chewy, light, rich. Why do we keep so many forms? Because each form holds a story. Because each form fits a climate, a culture, and a memory. Because tradition is not a box. Tradition is a river. Repeat after me. Tradition can change and still stay true. Again, tradition can change and still stay true. Beautiful. By this point, ice cream was no longer only a rare surprise. It was becoming a regular friend. It moved through streets, shops, and celebrations. It followed people to parks and beaches. It became part of birthdays and small rewards after school. But one more mystery remains. How did ice cream become the modern treat we see everywhere? Endless flavors, bright signs, and freezers in almost every store. And what does this story tell us about gratitude, comfort, and the meaning of home? Let's keep walking forward into the world we live in now, where cold sweetness is close at hand, and the light of a simple scoop can still feel like kindness. As ice cream became easier to make and easier to keep cold, it began to travel faster and farther. It moved with people, with businesses, and with new habits of daily life. It became a small symbol of modern comfort. Open a freezer, choose a flavor, feel the cold, calm your day. But how did the experience change when ice cream became everywhere? Why do some people love simple vanilla, while others chase wild new flavors? How did ice cream become both a global product and a personal memory at home? One change was variety. When makers could control cold more reliably, they could experiment more. They could add different fruits, nuts, chocolate, and many other tastes. They could also change the texture. Some styles became dense and slow melting. Others became light and airy. Some became very smooth. Others stayed a little icy on purpose. Because people are different, the dessert became flexible. That's why ice cream can match many moods. It can be quiet, it can be playful. It can be soft comfort after a hard week. Another change was speed and convenience. In modern life, people often want food that is quick, so cold desserts found new forms: bars, sandwiches, small cups, and cones you can hold while walking. Shops learned to serve faster. Machines helped create smooth swirls. Freezers in stores made it easy to keep many options ready. So the treat became part of everyday movement. You could buy it on the way home. You could share it after dinner. You could keep it in the freezer for later, like a small secret of hope waiting in the dark. Have you ever opened the freezer late at night and smiled? Have you ever saved the last spoon for someone you love? Have you ever felt gratitude for something small, because the day was heavy? Ice cream often lives in these quiet moments. It is not only sugar and cold. It is a pause, it is a little light. Now let's look at the world as a whole. Cold desserts appear in many cultures, and many of them began long before modern ice cream. Shaved ice desserts, for example, are found in many places. Some are topped with fruit, some use sweet milk, some use beans or jelly pieces, some use simple syrup. When modern ice cream spread, these older traditions did not vanish. They often grew stronger, because new tools made them easier to create and share. This is another bridge moment. Old and new walking together. Why does that matter? Because it shows respect, it shows survival. It shows that tradition is not fragile. Tradition can adapt with kindness. And what about making ice cream at home? Even with store-bought ice cream everywhere, many people still make it themselves. They do it for fun. They do it for family. They do it to control ingredients. They do it because cooking can feel like care. At home, the process is slower. You mix, you wait, you taste, you adjust, you share. This slowness can feel peaceful. It can feel like gratitude in action. Listen to this phrase. Made with care. Say it with me, made with care. Again, made with care. Good, simple words, warm meaning. Ice cream also became part of seasons and feelings. In summer, it cools the body. In spring, it feels fresh and bright. In winter, it can feel surprising, like a playful choice against the cold outside. Some people eat it when they celebrate. Some people eat it when they feel sad. Some people eat it when they feel nothing at all, and they just want a small comfort. Isn't that interesting? How can one dessert fit so many emotions? Because the real ingredient is memory. A flavor can bring you back to childhood. A smell can bring you back to a street at night, lights shining on wet ground after rain. A cone can bring you back to a first date, two people laughing, not knowing what the future holds. And even when life changes, even when the world moves fast, these small moments stay. So what is the history of ice cream? In the deepest sense, it is a story of humans chasing cold in a warm world. It is a story of survival through planning and invention. It is a story of tradition changing shape without losing its heart. It is a story of kindness, shared in small spoons. Before we close, try one more gentle speaking moment. Repeat after me. Simple things can bring hope. Again, simple things can bring hope. Good, keep that line with you. And now, imagine your own next bowl or cone. Imagine the quiet light in your kitchen. Imagine the first cold taste. Imagine how, for a few seconds, the world slows down. Why do we love that feeling? Because we all need comfort. Because we all need a little softness. Because home is not only a place. Home is also a feeling we carry. So the next time ice cream melts on your spoon, maybe you will feel a small thread connecting you to many people across time, people who saved snow, people who stirred mixtures by hand, people who built new tools, and people who simply wanted to share sweetness with someone they loved. May that thought bring you gratitude. May it bring you calm. And may it remind you that even a simple cold dessert can hold a warm kind of hope.